Please welcome our special guest, Dan Buettner, a National Geographic Fellow, award-winning journalist and producer, and New York Times best-selling author, to talk about 5 places in the world where people live the longest, healthiest lives.
Hi, I'm Dan Buettner, founder of the Blue Zones and National Geographic Fellow. And I'm going to take a few minutes here to talk about the world's longest lived people and the lessons they offer us for living longer. Something called the Danish Twin Study established that only about 20% of how long we live is dictated by our genes. The other 80% is something else. So our approach was, in a sense, to reverse engineer longevity. Through the ages of National Geographic, we struck off around the world to find the statistically longest lived places we call blue zones. We found the first one in Sardinia, Italy, a cluster of 6 villages, more than 70,000 people, where you have about 11 times more male centenarians there than you do in an equivalent population in most of the first world. The longevity phenomena is found exclusively among the shepherds who live in the highlands, who possess a fanatic zeal for the family, and they really prize older people. They harness the wisdom of older people, which not only favors their longevity, it favors the longevity of their children, something called the grandmother effect. On the other side of the planet, in Okinawa, Japan, 800 miles south of Tokyo, we found the world's longest lived women, about 30 times more female centenarians among this population than you would expect to see in, say, the United States. And part of it is their diet, high in tofu and sweet potatoes, but more of it is explained by social determinants, like the fact they cluster themselves in committed social circles called moais, and they support each other through a lifetime. They have no vocabulary for retirement. Instead, ikigai, or sense of purpose, imbues their entire adult life. In the United States, we found the blue zone just southeast of Los Angeles, California, in Loma Linda. This is the home of the highest concentration of Seventh-day Adventists in the world, conservative Methodists who distinguish themselves from other Christians in that they evangelize with health and they celebrate their Sabbath on Saturday. In the United States right now, life expectancy for women is about 80, but for life expectancy for females in the Adventist community is 87. And for men, the difference is even more remarkable. They're living about 10 years longer than the rest of us. So this is in the United States, not in some exotic island. It's explained partially by this 24-hour Sabbath, during which time they can downshift, focus on their families. There's a nature walk hardwired right into their scriptures. They take their diet directly from the Bible, Genesis chapter 1. They eat mostly a plant-based diet, and Adventists tend to hang out with other Adventists. We know that health behaviors are as contagious as a cold, and the contagions that circulate through the Adventist network tend to be positive. A fourth blue zone we found in Latin America, the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica. And this is a place with the lowest rate of middle-aged mortality in the world. They spend 1/15 the amount America does on healthcare, and they produce much better health outcomes, about half the rate of middle-aged mortality there. So 2.5 times better chance of reaching age 95 or so, which is the maximum average life expectancy. About 70% of their traditional dietary intake came from the 3 sisters of corn, which is ground into tortillas, squash, and beans. And when you mix that trio, you get complex carbohydrates, but you get also all the amino acids necessary for human sustenance, arguably the human species' best diet. Remarkably, as I said, the poorer people not only are living the longest in the Nicoya Peninsula, they also have the longest telomeres, indicating the youngest biological age. And then finally, we found the last blue zone off the coast of Turkey on the island of Ikaria, a very isolated place, 10,000 people, largely overlooked by Western civilization because they had no natural harbors. And in Ikaria, we find a population who live about 8 years longer than people in the United States, but almost no dementia, perhaps 1/10 the level of dementia, proving indeed that most of dementia is avoidable. How do they do it? Well, the fact that they adhere to the Mediterranean diet more strictly than any place else in the world perhaps explains some of it. But like in all blue zones, older people stay active into their 80s, 90s, and even 100 with a strong sense of purpose. But no matter where you go in the world and you see extraordinarily long livers, you see the same 9 common denominators. Number one, they don't really exercise, at least in the way we think of exercise. Instead, every time they go to work, a friend's house, or out to eat, it occasions a walk. They have gardens out back. Their houses aren't filled with the mechanical conveniences, so they burn about 5 times as many calories in non-exercise physical activity as we do. They have sacred daily rituals that help reverse the stress and the ensuing inflammation. Prayer, ancestor veneration, happy hour, even taking a nap seems to work in all 5 of the blue zones. Also, they have vocabulary for purpose. If you know your sense of purpose and can articulate it, that's worth about 7 extra years of life expectancy over being rudderless your whole life. When it comes to what they consume, they do drink a little bit, 2 to 3 glasses of wine, but no, you cannot save up all week long and have 14 on the weekend. It's mostly taken with meals. When it comes to their diet, if you want to know what a centenarian ate to live to be 100, you have to know what they ate most of their lives. I wrote a book called The Blue Zone Solution that included a meta-analysis of 155 dietary studies done in all 5 blue zones over the past 80 years. So we were seeing what 100-year-olds were eating when they were kids and middle age and newly retired. And indeed, it's 90 to 100% whole plant-based food. It's a high carbohydrate diet, flies right in the face of these sort of low carb diets. In fact, the majority of calories they're taking are complex carbohydrates like grains, greens, tubers, nuts. And if you really want to know a longevity food, eat a cup of beans a day. That's probably worth 4 extra years of life expectancy. They did eat meat, but not as much as you might think. No more than 5 servings a month, less fish. No cow's dairy in the blue zones, a little bit of feta cheese and pecorino cheese. And when it came to what they drink, 6 glasses of water, teas of every kind, both herbal and caffeinated. Good news for most, coffee, and then a little bit of wine, usually with friends and almost always with meals. But unlike America that tends to focus on what they add to their diet, in blue zones, they're better at engineering calories out of the diet by eating all their food in an 8-hour window, breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. They don't have electronics in their kitchen, so they're not eating to their favorite television show. The foundation of blue zones is they tend to put their family first, keep their aging parents nearby. They tend to belong to a faith and show up every month or so. That's worth 4 to 14 years of life expectancy. And they really focus on the people they surround themselves with. We now know that if your 3 best friends are obese and unhealthy, there's a 155% better chance that you'll be overweight yourself. So in blue zones, people tend to surround themselves with people whose idea of recreation is walking or gardening, people who share their plant-based food beliefs, and people who will take care of them on a bad day. So in the United States, life expectancy is about 80, but the average maximum life expectancy of the human species living in the first world is about 92 or 93. So most of us watching this right now are probably leaving 12 years on the table. And to recapture those 12 years, another way to look at it is to take the lessons from the blue zones. People in blue zones are eating wisely, mostly a whole plant-based diet. They're nudged into movement every 20 minutes or so because of the way their surroundings are set up. Because their life is underpinned by purpose, they're surrounded by the right tribe, and they live in places where the healthy choice is the easy choice. And the true secret of longevity doesn't really lie in any of these circles, but rather the interconnected, mutually supporting nature of these things. Because when it comes to longevity or trying to be healthy, the secret isn't thinking that you're going to have the discipline and the focus to do the right thing for long enough to avoid heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia, these things that foreshorten our lives. The secret is really setting up your life with these 5 factors that mutually support each other, so you're doing the right thing for long enough and avoiding the wrong thing so you can live that 94 years you deserve. The bottom line is, if you want to live longer, don't focus on changing your mind, change your surroundings. Thank you very much.